Hello, everybody. I'm a practicing therapist and I work with a lot of individuals with attachment wounds. And I work with a lot of individuals who are avoidantly attached, particularly leaning. I would say I work with a lot of dismissive avoidance. And then for fearful avoidance, I work with a lot who are leaning avoidant instead of leaning anxious. And so a lot of the things that I'm going to say kind of is based on my own evaluation. This is not a one size fits all. But today I actually wanted to go over some of the differences between avoidant individuals. Basically, a lot of people think every single avoidant is the same, and they're not. Nobody's the same. So that's not even possible. But a lot of avoidance, basically, a lot of people think that an avoidant is always going to break their heart. They're never going to change. And that's just simply not true. There are differences between some avoidants that I've actually noticed, and I can kind of pick up some characteristics between different individuals who I think are more susceptible to changing and are more likely to commit. So today, I'm going to go over 2 examples. Now, and then through those examples, I want you guys to kind of tell me if you can figure out the differences between these individuals, and then together, we're going to go over these differences so that you can figure out, is your avoidant partner a person who has a potential to change and commit, or are they maybe not as much and we need to start adjusting some of those things? So that's kind of why I'm going to give these examples, because I want you guys to really understand the true nature of how some of these individuals kind of end up in their life, okay? And these are based on my patients. However, I've changed some things or I've blended some patients together so that these are not breaking confidentiality. So they are based on patients, but they are not exact. However, I will give you these 2 examples because I really feel that this is important. And these are the 2 different types. And I want you guys to think about what is the differences between these 2 individuals, because they're both clearly avoidant, but what's the difference? I want you guys to think about it. Okay. So the first case that we're going to talk about, let's talk about it. Okay. So let's go through his kind of life story. It is a man who left his wife and son. So he was married. He left his wife, he left his son. During their marriage, this man never told his ex-wife that he loved her. Bedroom intimacy was very frequent in the beginning, but it just almost disappeared to nothing through the end of the relationship. He would appear more and more disinterested throughout the marriage, just in general, much more detached. He was very, very strict to his son if he had any contact with him at all. So he was mainly out of the house. He would often call his ex-wife during the marriage and also after. He would call her demanding. He would call her needy. And he admitted to me as a therapist, but in general, he would always say that his marriage was very suffocating, very suffocating. And suffocating was a word that he used, and it's very common that avoidants use it. So how he divorced her, he mailed her to the divorce papers. He didn't even tell her directly in person. They were separated for a while. He mailed her the divorce papers, and he admitted to me it's because he didn't want to do it in person because he was afraid that she would yell at him. Okay? He remained in contact with his son. He basically was more and more distant in the relationship, and then one day he just ended it. When his son got older, he admitted to his son that he only married his mom, so his ex-wife, because he felt sorry for her and felt a lot of pressure. So he wasn't ready for the marriage. He also admitted to having an affair, which he later felt also suffocated about and also left. He now lives alone. He's in his 60s. He lives alone. He's in a different state, and he's never gotten remarried, and he hasn't had a relationship in over 15 years. So that's one avoidant. And yes, this is based on real patients. Like, this is not made up. It's based on real patients. So kind of take a moment to consider some of what you can kind of understand about this particular patient. What is something about him that maybe you can look at your own partner and think, what are some similarities? And also, what are some differences? But we can clearly tell this man is very deeply avoidant, deep wounds. Let's talk about another man. Now, both of these patients are men, but avoidants can be females. This is the example. I think I told you before, it happens to be that most of my caseload is men, but let's go ahead and jump into the other one. Okay. And why don't you tell me if you can spot some of the differences? This man is also quite avoidant. They're both dismissive avoidant, by the way. So a man, he's, let's just say he's in his late 30s, early 40s. And he finds a woman attractive and he goes up to her and he gets her number. Okay. So he's very confident. He comes across very charming, very charismatic. He begins dating her. And then as soon as the relationship progresses around the 6-month mark, she asks, like, where is this going? What's going on? And he boldly, strictly tells her, and he hasn't told her this before, he doesn't want a relationship and he never wants to get married. Straight up told her he doesn't want kids, he doesn't want to get married, doesn't want a relationship. Okay? So she kind of accepts that a little bit. She compromises and she says, okay, she's not totally into that either. She would like some form of being exclusive. And he says, okay, we can be exclusive, but I don't want a relationship. I don't worry about labels. It is just what it is. That's what he says. Okay. Let's fast forward. So he's been with her for 4 years now. So we're fast forwarding. He's been with the same woman for 4 years without a label. On the outside, it is exactly like a relationship. They're exclusive. They see each other every week, or maybe twice a week, depending. They text daily. He calls her. He texts her. He makes time for her. He admits that he doesn't want to see her too often. Once a week is his limit, but sometimes he'll do twice a week, depending. He also doesn't want to spend holidays with her. He spends holidays alone. He spends holidays alone with his dog, just him and his dog. He doesn't really want bedroom intimacy when she initiates. He's fine when he does it, but when she does, he doesn't want it anymore. So you can already see he's very stubborn and very rigid, right? He rarely initiates, but he does. And when he does, he wants it and he doesn't want her to say no. And if she says no, he's very wounded and hurt. Okay. So what happens is she's backed off on a lot of things and that helped him to be more comfortable. Now let's fast forward a little bit past the 4th year. After 4 years, he admits that they are in a relationship. So the whole time he didn't really admit it, but now he's finally admitting, okay, this is a relationship. And he admits he's always been loyal to her. He admits to his therapist, me, he's always been loyal. Years continue and he becomes more comfortable with bedroom intimacy, even when she initiates. It's still hard for him, but he's become more compromising. Now, fast forward years, even from that, 6-7 years in, he admits that he plans on getting married to her. He's still not a fan of holidays, and he prefers not to celebrate them, but he's okay with doing something small as long as it's just them and maybe sometimes family or friends, but nothing too big. He doesn't like it too big. He's okay with pictures every now and then. He kind of struggles to smile in pictures, but he's trying. And so he's really opening up. So the two differences, what can you notice about these two differences? They start different as well, but they're both very avoidant. So I'm going to go ahead and tell you what I notice the differences, and you guys can kind of also look at the differences because these are two very avoidant men, but they're also different. So the first one is a difference between being upfront versus being kind of like lying, sneaky, and indirect, right? So the second man, the one who eventually commits, he's upfront. He straight up told her he doesn't want anything more than what this is, and he's very stubborn. You can clearly tell this guy is stubborn. It was everything was his way or the highway, which isn't healthy, by the way. But he was very stubborn, very straight up. He doesn't want this. He doesn't want that. He's not going to have intimacy if she initiates, but he's okay if he does it. Really stubborn, not healthy at all. Obviously, underneath his stubbornness is fear of losing control, because as you can see, eventually as the years go on, he lets go of that control, right? But what about the first man, the one who's in his 60s, who left his wife and son? What about him? He's obviously an avoidant too, but he wasn't as obviously stubborn. What did he say about why he wanted to get married? He said he did it because she was pressuring him. Whereas the other guy, he was being pressured too, but he said no. He just put the stubborn wall down. The 60-year-old man, who in the beginning of his years, he went along with what she said, but indirectly, he also said things about her. Like he said that she was problematic in some ways, right? So he was very sneaky. He was probably lying a lot too. He also admitted to having an affair, whereas the other guy admitted he was loyal, right? So these are two avoidants, but they're very different. So what's another aspect about these two individuals that make them different? It's the way they admit they're wrong. Now, wrong is not really the right word, but I'm just using that as an example, kind of why they admit some of their issues, right? The first guy, he didn't really want to admit that he was part of the reason the marriage broke down. He called his ex-wife needy. He said she was demanding. He said the marriage was suffocating. Whereas the other guy, he probably would have felt that way too, but instead he just didn't let it go that far. He admitted that he is this way and he doesn't want to change. He does later change, which a lot of them do that. But he up front said he doesn't want to change. This is who he is. He doesn't want marriage. He doesn't want a relationship. Eventually he goes ahead and does that. But the difference is he actually is accepting who he is. And the first guy is not really admitting that he's a problem. He's saying, oh, the marriage failed because of her. It's not because of me. It's because of her. Kind of, right? That's what he's saying. The other guy is saying, oh, I know I'm a problem and I'm going to stay this way. He changes eventually, and both are not healthy, but you're seeing the difference between how they admit their own wounds, right? And the last one, and this is the biggest and most important point, as you can probably tell by us evaluating these two cases, the first one doesn't make progress. Like throughout the years, he doesn't really make any progress. Almost at all. In fact, it's almost like he goes back in time because originally he was almost faking it, right? Whereas the other guy, he makes progress very, very slowly. He still doesn't like holidays. It took him, like 4 years to finally label? He's still not comfortable with bedroom intimacy when she initiates, but he's trying. And he is planning to get married to her after 7, 8 years? Took a long time. Avoidants are not, they're not commitment forward. So it's going to be this way. But the difference is this guy, the second guy, he has made changes. The first guy, no changes. He divorced her through the mail. And then later he told his son that he didn't even want to get married. He did not make changes. I think he knows he's a problem, but it's still hard for him to admit it. Whereas the second guy, he really has made some adjustments, even though he kind of pretends like he doesn't. There is adjustments. So why did I do this? Why did I share this with you? It's very important to recognize that not all avoidants are the same. And I'm saying this because there are avoidants who are like the second guy, who he comes across as somebody who doesn't change, but he does change. And so you as a partner, it's for you to understand that not every individual is the same, and that if you see changes, if you see kind of admission of being wrong, if you see that they're being upfront, they're being honest with you, that relationship, from my perspective, it really does have a chance. Because most of the avoidants that I've worked with that do change, they're a lot like the second guy. And I'm sure a lot of you guys know how these two avoidants, they both are avoidant, but they're different as well. The ones that I notice change are much more like the second guy. So that's why I wanted to make this video for you. I hope this was helpful for somebody. My hope is that you guys can have healthy relationships and move forward in a way where both of you guys are satisfied, okay? Go ahead and subscribe, like, and comment, and I'll see you in the next one.